Hello and welcome to the Let's Talk Azure podcast with your host Sam Foote.
And Armstrong.
If you're new here, we're a pair of Azure and Office 365 focused IT security professionals. Each episode, we talk about a specific topic in the space. This week is episode 11 of season 3. We're going to have a chat around Azure Cognitive Services, a group of features designed to add cognitive abilities to your application. There are a fair few of them, so strap in for a whistle stop tour through all of them. Hey Alan, how are you doing this week?
Hey Sam, not doing too bad. It's been a very busy week for me. How about you?
Yeah, we've been very busy this week getting our new podcast artwork and website out the door. It's been very exciting, hasn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Hopefully everyone's seeing it now on their players. I think we started doing it last week, didn't we? There's a few sort of we were just uploading it and getting it all ready so we could announce it. So yeah, and we've got our we've also updated our website as well, haven't we?
Yeah, so we've got some fresh artwork, which I think is a little bit more inviting than what we had in the past, which is good. We're a few seasons in now, so yeah, we're definitely wanting to sort of up the quality as much as we possibly can now. Yeah, and the website is no different. We've got a dedicated sort of podcast website as a platform that we use. And I think one really cool feature I just want to call out is you can leave us a voicemail on the website. So what we're planning on doing is doing sort of a Q&A bonus episode. So if you go onto the website, in the bottom right hand corner, there'll be a little microphone. If you click that, you can record a message. And what we can do is we can if appropriate, we can play that back in the episode, or we can. So yeah, please do submit questions to us. It can be Office 365, Azure related, sort of from a professional stance. If you've got any questions about what we've done over our careers or any advice that you want for yours, yeah, definitely please leave us a voicemail. And if we do get some, we'll wrap them up into a bonus episode or two, depending on how many we get. So yeah, go and check out the website. It's letstalkpodcast.co.uk. And yeah, it should be a lot nicer experience than the previous one, shouldn't it, Alan?
Yes, definitely. I think it's definitely a big upgrade for our website because we did have one previously, but um, yeah, it's just it came with our distribution mechanisms, didn't it? So um, yeah, also with those voice messages, it can also be around the Microsoft security stuff as well as Office 365 and Azure, and like Sam said, our career stuff. But we're also, I'm going to put it out there that we're going to plan to put some blog posts on there as well, hopefully tying in with some of our podcasts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, one of the struggles that we have with podcasts is that we can't actually show you anything. So, yeah, we're going to try and start with some sort of frequency. I'm not sure what that frequency will be yet. Is to start writing up some blog posts where we can talk about some of these features and be a bit more visual in how we're explaining things. So what are we covering this week, Al?
So this week we are going to cover Azure Cognitive Services, and I think you are going to take the SME, the person or the host that has done some research into it to guide us through this episode.
Yeah, lots to cover in this one. And yeah, loads of different services. With Azure Cognitive Services, it is, I'm going to say, exploding massively and very quickly. I have actually deployed and used one of the cognitive services in a production application before, but that was quite a while ago. And when I came back to research this episode, I was like, wow, this has changed like a huge amount. So yeah, so it should be a good one. There are a lot of areas to cover, so I'm going to try and keep to it. I'm going to try and give you sort of the high level overview and the key features of each one to get through them. Um, because each one could be an episode in itself, and each area could be an episode easily in itself. So, without further ado, should we kick off, Alan?
Yeah, definitely. So let's start off with the basics. What is Azure Cognitive Services?
Okay, so um, if you what I want to do is I want to start with how you would traditionally utilize AI or machine learning in your application. If you didn't have cognitive services, um, there are many different machine learning mechanisms, but essentially you would decide the problem that you're trying to solve. So let's say you wanted to detect certain entities in images. Let's say that as you wanted to take pictures and identify any pictures that have got dogs in them. You would first collect your data set to train on. You would then train a machine learning model, or there's different ways of doing that, but I'll just call it train that model. And then once you've trained that model, you would then put that model into use and actually start feeding data through it. But in order to do that, you need people with the specialist skills in order to do that. You also need the hardware to do it, and a good amount of time researching, those different data sets in order to train your model on. And so, if you want to build your own, models and have your own intellectual property, that's a really good way to go. But some applications, their main focus isn't on necessarily, well, from a marketing perspective, maybe, but their main focus isn't on that AI capability. What they need is some workloads and features are complex to implement without AI. AI can make certain workloads like image recognition. Once they're actually built, it can make them very efficient and very accurate in order to do that. So, what cognitive services does is it effectively says, don't bother with any of that in a really simplistic way. What Microsoft will do is Microsoft will train those AI models for you. They will then wrap them up into a service that you can consume, I'm going to say easily. And the reason why I say easily is compared to the process that I've just described, because there's still going to be an element of effort that you've got to do to consume these APIs. But effectively, you've got machine learning models, AI as a service, basically. So you can connect to a REST API, and you can consume these models and these different feature sets um, without having to go through that laborious process. And we I so so the different areas. So actually, before I go into the areas, I'm just going to talk about how cognitive service is a little bit different as well, in terms of it isn't just a REST API. Microsoft have actually got the ability with some of the features and functions to be able to run cognitive services at the edge inside of Docker containers. So if the data that you're maybe processing with your models is sensitive, maybe it's medical images and medical scans, or you're doing OCR of sensitive information, and maybe you're in a regulated industry where it's not just a simple case of sending it up to Microsoft in order for them to mine or process that information. um, you can actually run Docker containers at the edge that require a reasonable, I'm not going to say reasonable specifications in terms of like not complex boxes to run them on, like GPU accelerated boxes and things like that. And you effectively connect it and you get billed on a consumption basis for them as well. So you don't have to go with a fully connected system. And you can also run them partially disconnected as well. You have to check them in every so often to sync up the billing data, but that's a very flexible way to go. Um, there's five main areas of cognitive services. There's speech services, so that's looking around actual spoken language in words. You've then got language, which is more textual representation of language, OCR, and entity recognition. You've got vision, so image and video vision recognition systems. I'll go through those. They've got an area for decision making, anomaly tracking. There's some really good tooling in there that I'll talk about, and then they've got a whole separate section for OpenAI. If you don't know who OpenAI is, they they are an organization that trains specialist machine learning models for various different workloads. You may have heard of ChatGPT, you may have heard of DALI E, and they have many other not as popular, I would say, machine learning models. Microsoft's relationship with OpenAI is very, I'll call it close, um, because we are now seeing OpenAI technologies being implemented directly in Microsoft products. So we've seen that in Office recently. We've seen it in Power Platform, haven't we? We've seen it in their security solutions. We've seen it all over the place. Bing is another big place that OpenAI and ChatGPT is being embedded in. Um, and Microsoft have made quite recently a very large investment. I think $10 billion investment into OpenAI. I think they own like 50% of it, or sort of 49.9% of OpenAI, or something like that. Um, but we've definitely seen a very close. We've got the founder of OpenAI being included on keynote speeches with Microsoft. So that Microsoft are spending a lot of money implementing these AI driven solutions into their products, but also, and quite great for us, they're also exposing that functionality to us in a way that we can consume for our applications.
Wow, that seems like a lot just talking about it there. I mean, yeah, OpenAI and Chat GPT has been definitely on the news and in media recently. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, okay. So let's check out one of these areas. So what speech focused solutions are there?
Okay, so I'm going to just go through each one. I'll try and keep it to a couple of minutes. Alan, please fire any questions you've got at me, and I'll try my
Hmm.
best to, because I have been through quite extensively the documentation on these ones, so and played around with them quite a bit. So the first one I want to talk about is speech to text. So that is like spoken speech, and then that can then be transcribed into text. So what's amazing about this service is it supports over 100 different languages. Um, you can customize the models that are used. You can add your own specific words and base vocabulary to your text to speech models. So if you imagine, the way that I kind of see this is like, when you're in Word, you've got to add something to your local dictionary. That's what you're able to do with this as well. This solution can be run at the edge in containers as well. And Microsoft make it very apparent that this is the same technology that they're using in their other Microsoft products. So when we're seeing transcription, you can transcribe in, you can dictate in Word and things like that, can't you? That's what you're seeing here. So
Yeah,
yeah, sorry, go on, Anna.
I was gonna say, yeah, I was just about to say, is this going to be using that cognitive services? So you've already
Yeah,
answered that
we
question.
we don't know, but I can highly assume that it's the
Yeah.
same underlying tech, right? You can feed in audio from microphones, audio files, and you can stream it in from blob storage as well. So yeah, it's really it's very powerful in terms of we use similar technology on the podcast to automatically generate our transcripts. So it's the same kind of models that are being utilized here. Okay, so the next one is the opposite way round. So it's actually synthesizing text into speech. So I think we've all heard it in different like reels and TikToks and YouTube shorts. When you get the I can't remember what the name of the bots are that they use on those short form videos, but this is effectively taking textual input and actually synthesizing it into speech. What's interesting about this is there's a big play here on not making it sound like a robot, which I think is quite interesting. So you can create your own AI voice generator, and the words specifically from Microsoft, and I quoted them. Create a unique voice generator that reflects your brand's identity. Okay, I haven't
Okay.
used this yet because I would like to create an AI voice generator for the podcast, and I will utilize my credit as much as we need to for this. Maybe what we should do, Alan, is use the text to speech API to record our new intro. Maybe. Yeah, again, this one can be deployed to the edge as well, so you can do you can do it. You don't have to do it in the cloud if you don't want to. Um, there is an audio content creation tool to allow you to fine tune the synthesized speech audio to tune it to, to your liking. Um, and you can also adjust the rate, pitch, pronunciation, pauses of the actual AI model itself. So it's not just text to speech; it's also customization of that speech model as well. So yeah, kind of scary in some ways. The next service is speech translation. Um, you can convert text, you can convert speech to translated text at that point. 30 languages are supported in this mode. Um, Again, this is technology that is in use by Microsoft. um, you can customize, you can tailor the model for translation, so you can add specific terminology and unique speaking styles. I back in the day used to work for a language learning startup, and there are many different nuances to how different text is translated. That is sometimes overridden dependent on the context of what you're teaching. So that seems like a really positive thing for me. Um, and I think what Microsoft are keen to point out with this one is as well is from their perspective there is no logging of your speech once it's passed through the service. So it's translated to the output and then I assume discarded on the services side at that point. Um, I don't know if this one can be run at the edge. I think that's why they call out the no logging, basically, because this one isn't currently at the edge. Um, and then the last one in the speech section, which I personally think is probably the coolest and the scariest for me, right? Somebody that's seen Terminator, The Matrix, right? This is Minority Report for me. The next one is speaker recognition. So you can use speech to do a verification of who is talking and cross compare against samples of a spoken voice from a specific person. But what's even cooler than that is being able to identify speakers within a group setting of chatting as well.
That's
So
pretty cool.
I'm not. Yeah, it kind of scares me in some respect, right? And I just have to call this out. I've got, I got no reason to distrust Microsoft whatsoever, but this is starting to get into like scary territory for me, definitely. This one I don't believe can be run at the edge as well, so it makes it a little bit more scary from that. But yeah, you can go through a user enrollment process where you effectively train the model on to identify a specific person. You can then obviously do your audio capture, and then you can run it through the process to get speaker recognition at the end of it. Um, what I'd kind of like to see is I wonder if we might be able to start seeing sort of like MFA, but with voice prompt instead. I don't
Uh,
know if the signature of your voice is close enough unique enough biometrically, if that makes sense. So
yeah, I guess it could be a part of one, maybe. Maybe you have that plus something else. I mean, you always see it on the movies, don't you? Art, retina scan plus speak your special word and things like that. But But yeah, maybe it is a two-part step there. Maybe you put your pin in, and then you have to say something to prove that you're actually there.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know, but Microsoft call out that this can be good for personalized experiences, identifying who is maybe part of this audio capture. So if you ran this, maybe you've got like a, you know, the thing is, in an application perspective, you would know the identity of the user that's like logged in, if that makes sense, right? So personalization from an application perspective is relatively easy because you usually know who well, quotes, who everybody is, right? So for me, I just think this is like spy sort of stuff to me, to be totally honest with you.
I, I,
Like wiretaps, this is that's what
I,
it feels like to me.
I kind of see it potentially not as secret like that sort of thing, but maybe things like committees and things like that, where you're having discussions and maybe you're recognizing who's in that room, things like who's attended, or accompanied with the dictation side of things of who's talking. That you might be able to then almost automate your minutes. But I guess that
Yeah,
might be
definitely.
part of
Yeah.
what might be coming into the premium Microsoft Teams, isn't it? Where it's doing all that sort of stuff in next steps. So maybe
Yeah,
it's
no,
already done.
great. Yeah, great shout. Yeah, a combination of that uh speech to text, right? To get who is actually talking. Yeah, that's a really great use case of that.
Cool, cool. Okay, I think we need to move on to the next one because
Yeah.
we didn't spend 2 minutes on each of those for sure. Um, so the next section, um, language processing solutions. Can you explain some of those that are in this area?
Okay, so the first one is so this area is cognitive service for language. Um, and the first one is named entity recognition. Okay, so what named entities are if you imagine you've got a set of unstructured text. So you've got some user input from somebody. Maybe you've got like a legal. Let's say you've got a legal document. What you might want to do is you might want to run an analysis to understand um, where in that document different organizations have been referenced, maybe how many different types of how many different people have been mentioned in that, maybe different skills that maybe different email addresses that are inside of the. So you're effectively taking unstructured data, applying labels to it so you can understand the content of that, not just the structure but what's actually included in it. What's great is that Microsoft has got this thing called the language studio, and for a lot of these cognitive services, you can actually go and demo it. So, for instance, for the named entities, you can try it out. They've got example like NDAs, emails, banking emails, and different bits like that. And you can run it and you can show how it's actually processed that text and found named entities inside of it. The next is sentiment analysis. So sentiment analysis is it's an area that is used when when you've interacted maybe with like a chat bot, it asks you how good your experience was. What they also do is use things like sentiment analysis to understand the sentiment of what's actually been spoken in that chat. So it might be that they're trying to detect that maybe one of their customers is frustrated, maybe they're not getting the customer focused, customer centric user experience that they should be getting. And understanding, sentiment analysis is used a lot in social networks to understand how public opinion about certain things is happening. So there's a sentiment analysis which can apply sentiment labels on text, so it can have like labels such as negative, neutral, and positive connotations coming from them. And it also gives you a score from 0 to 1, with like a percentage increase, basically, 0, 0.1, 0.2, etc. Probably more granular than that. But it can actually tell you how confident it thinks it is with that. There's also another part of it which is called opinion mining, which I'd never heard about before I started reading up on this. Um, and it's another part of natural language processing, which gives you more granular feedback about the opinions related to the words that were used, not just applying a positive, neutral, or negative sort of label to it. Um, the next section for me is question answering. So it allows you to feed in your knowledge base of unstructured documents and text. And what this can then do is it can build a Q&A knowledge-based system around it. So you can effectively, you can use it to drive bot experiences, basically off the top of that. This does kind of feed into bot framework because that has its own Q&A maker, I think it's called, isn't it?
Well,
Is it
well, I was
is
just
it
about to, as part of this, I was going to say, where does Q&A Maker fit in this?
is it called Q&A
Um,
maker? Did I get that
yeah,
right?
it
Yeah,
was
yeah. Okay, great.
QNAmaker.io. But I
Yeah,
just did
okay.
a quick bit of research, just kind of work it out. And it goes, it's being retired in 2024. Let me just double check. 2025 in March 2025, because there's a new service in Cognitive Services, which I'm guessing is
Yeah.
this one. So
And I believe what they've done is they've done it so that Q&A maker can be detached from the bot service framework, like it's its own thing, if that makes sense. And it
hmm,
is its own like area, right? So you can also use this to drive your in-app experiences as well, right? Because you know, there's some tooling to do this. There's things like Zendesk and other support systems which can build Q&As from knowledge bases and things like that, but this also allows you to build a very bespoke, maybe not even support related Q&A system. Maybe you're you want to add a Q&A on top of all of your technical diagrams and documentation, right? There's many different things that you could use question answering for, basically.
yeah, well,
um
you
yeah,
could
sorry,
use
go
it
on.
for if you've got a retail site, isn't it? Asking questions about a product, that sort of stuff as well.
To Yeah, if you had a catalog of like
Yeah,
10,000 different products and you didn't want people to do drop downs, you could build like a Q&A maker to ask people, to get to the actual products or subset of products that you want them to get to in the quickest way possible, right? you know
yeah,
I'd love to see a demo of that, being able to succinctly navigate through a large collection of items, relatively quickly, for sure. Next one for me is document summarization. So this is the ability to shorten content that users can. You might have some content that is longer, and you want to shorten it to get the key points across, but to reduce the amount of reading that users have to do. This is currently in preview, I believe. This feature. I'm not 100% sure if this one can be done at the edge. I haven't got any notes on that, so I'm going to say no at the moment. Um, but so there's extractive summarization. So it extracts sentences. So it basically keeps the content the same, but just cuts out content. And there's abstractive summarization as well, which produces a summary by creating its own summary sentences as well. So it like rewrites it as it makes it shorter to make it so one can basically go sub um, sentence like length, and one can just use those sentences rearranged, basically.
so so could this write our show notes?
Yeah, maybe this whole episode is just us being lazy about producing the podcast, but I'm happy for it. Like, it's not a problem.
No.
Yeah. The next area, stop, Alan, stop slowing me down. The next one is conversational language understanding. What this attempts to do is to understand the language that is being used during a conversation to interpret a user's goals, and extracts key information from those conversational phrases in order to do that. It works across 96 languages, um, and then you can train in one language, and then you don't, and then apparently it can automatically use that in other languages without retraining. And I don't know how that works, but they called that out. So it
Wow.
seems like, are they like training one model and then using their translation service to then translate that model into it? I don't know. I at this point I'm so like far in the weeds with this cognitive services. But again, you can use the language studio. You can it simplifies the creation and labeling and deployment of any custom models that you want to build. You don't need any um, you don't need any like specific machine learning experience, to get going. So what they're saying is you tag, you evaluate, you deploy, then you produce a sample again, and you tag. So I believe what you're doing is you're reinforcing the learning of this model with human interaction. I believe. And the last one is the text translation service. So if you've ever used Google Translate, effectively what this isn't a Google Translate. This is a Cognitive Services translator, I should say. My apologies. Can't use the G word around here. Um, it supports over 100 languages, and you can translate text in between them. Again, they support domain specific um, uh, and custom model tweaking. So you can, because one big thing about translations, because I've been in that world, is that there is nuances in different contexts of how you're saying things in different, especially when you're targeting different age groups and things like that. So it is customizable as well for you.
Th- There's just so much there, isn't there, in that section? Just so much in the first two.
Each one of these is a startup,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm not joking. Like you can pay for, if you don't want to build these things as a developer, you can buy in specific tooling to do this. There are APIs out there that you can pay to have a translator service, but this is just all fully like integrated into the same, like billing account, and it's yeah.
Wow. Okay. Next section then. So, what vision based functionality is there that you could explain in cognitive services?
Okay, so vision is I think ever since we've had machine learning models and AI, vision, OCR, image and video analysis has been a quite a key use case of that. I would say probably one of the earliest. Detecting certain types of objects in images and video. That's what cognitive services for vision gives you. You can do image analysis. But what they've got, and if you've never really been in the machine learning space, there are pre-built models that I can't remember the name of it. There's a really big open source one. I can't remember the name of it. Oh, it's escaped me. But that's a pre-trained open source model that is trained to detect certain things. Like it can determine, it can detect dogs, cats, bananas, stop signs, a variety of different things. So what people will do is they will train singular or multiple models to detect different types of objects. So apparently, there is more than 10,000 objects that are supported. I believe they call them concepts and objects. So you can detect them, you can classify them, you can caption them. So like draw boxes around them and flag them, so that you can see. So if you had like a large data set of photos and you wanted to search all those photos to how many times is Alan's face, in these photos, then if Alan is one of the objects it's able to identify, probably a bad example, then you can do that to search images. You've also got optical character recognition, so to extract printed and even handwritten text from images, which is just I don't know how you do handwritten, so that's just like mental to me. And there's also facial recognition as well, so identifying different people based on their facial recognition, which is a little bit um, scary to me.
So,
Uh,
so
yeah,
this
sorry.
this kind of wasn't there a "What's My Age" site that Microsoft released that you could go and put your photo on it, would guess your age or guess what was in the
No, I
photo.
haven't seen that.
No,
No, I
you
haven't
haven't.
seen that.
There was
No.
something a couple of years ago it was, and you could basically put photos into it, and they had example ones, and it would tell you what was in it. So it would tell you that there's a door, there's a cat. It's basically showing off this
Yeah,
service, but
yeah,
just out there. And one of them was what's my age sort of thing. You'd give it a photo and go, oh yeah, this photo makes you look like you're 46 or whatever. So
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, and the facial recognition, the example that they use is, like I don't know if you've ever had it with like your mobile banking, where you have to, like, for instance, for my bank, I have to instead of me using my card reader now, I open the app, it shows me my face, and I've just got to blink, and they take a picture of me, and they verify it against a previously held image of me. It's a bit weird, but that sort of thing where you're actually doing like facial recognition of, is the person that's in front of like your application really the person um, that's using it. Um, and there's also in Vision, there's also a custom vision as well. So you can build your own custom vision model. You can create your own objects to detect. So imagine you are let's say you're a manufacturing um, organization, and you want to detect, I don't know, when one of your widgets isn't on the line or something like that. I don't know, really bad example, but you can actually, train a model yourself to detect specific objects that you are interested in, not just generic, you know, I want to be able to detect dogs. I want to be able to detect, the wrenches that I build on my production line, to make sure to see if they've fallen off the belt or something like that. I don't know. Bad example. I'm terrible with examples on the fly. My apologies.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
So I
sorry, go
kind of
on.
see that, like you said, it's kind of the manufacturing where you've got part of a object or whatever it might be that might not actually mean anything to but the end product, maybe it's a toy of a dog. You've got the tail, you've got the ears or whatever, and then you're putting it together to make the object that it would be able to recognize. You're building the solution to recognize those separate parts, so you can see if they are valid
Yeah.
and etc.
Yeah. And if you had your widget that you were detecting, right? Let's say I don't know, let's say you like forge steel, right? And you want to detect if you know, like no, let's not use that example. Let's just use an example of like you want to detect every time a widget is seen, in a video feed, right? For you to train a model to see that widget, you know, and to detect that widget, could you imagine like the cost of hiring like a machine learning expert to come and train you a model specifically for that, and the time it would take you to do that? Oh no, you just jump into the user friendly interface to build your custom vision model. You upload your source images of what you want it to detect, you train a model, and then you can either run it in the cloud. Oh, and by the way, this one you can run at the edge as well, like in your
Wow.
manufacturing facility on a rugged edge device. Like, it's just, I want to try this. I don't know what I'm going to train, but I want to train something really obscure, right? So yeah. Apologies, I'm getting things. So that to me is like, again, no, no need to, no need for any specific machine learning expertise. It's like, and you've got, I could, there must be loads of potential real world use cases for that. Definitely.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. Okay, on to the next section because we're hitting quite a long episode already.
Yeah.
Okay, so decision making section. Well, what use cases are in there?
Okay, so anomaly detection, which I think is really interesting. So if you have a time series, if you have a data set that is based on a time series, so let's say you're feeding data from a temperature sensor, right? And let's say the nominal temperature that you want to see is 100 degrees, right? Let's say you've got some controlled environment that needs to be 100 degrees. Um, what you can do is you can use anomaly detection to show what the expected value is, and you can detect anomalies in that. So if your temperature spikes suddenly to 120 degrees, you could then use anomaly detection to see that you've breached that threshold. But on any type of time series data. So this could be data flowing in from temperature sensors, pressure sensors, vibration, velocity sensors, so IoT or OT devices in manufacturing. So you can basically stream anomaly data into the anomaly detector in real time. There is also the ability to send not just univariant data, which is one singular. So my example is a univariant, which is just like one temperature sensor, but you can also do multi-variate APIs where you can feed in multiple values. So let's say you've got a pressure and a temperature sensor, and you can also then detect anomalies based on both of the characteristics of each of those data sets that are flowed in. So you can actually say, you know, if the temperature increases, it's also normal that the pressure would increase X, Y, or Z. You know, and look at detections anomalies basically on both of those values or multiple values that are being passed in. The next one is content moderation. So this is looking for potentially unwanted text in images, text, and even video moderation as well. So you could do image, text, and video, which is pretty mental. And they've also got a human review tool. So just like if you are in like system like YouTube must have a human review tool. I assume not, unless it's all just done by computers now. But if you do ingest text data, image data, or video data, you've got a way that you can go and have humans review at least some part of that, which is then potentially flagged for moderation. So you could build that into your platform. You could say anything that's automatically flagged is potentially harmful goes through human validation before it actually gets released onto the site. How powerful is that? That's insane.
Save a lot of time, wouldn't it, to do that pre-check, that triaging? Definitely.
Exactly, yeah, like edge case, detection. And the last one is a uh, person personalization service. So this is a service which you can you I can't. It's hard for me to explain this, right? So I'm just going to use the notes I pulled from Microsoft. But it is used to improve recommendations and next best actions and content offers for users. So what I what I don't really understand is how the system understands the sort of KPIs and the user behavior to drive the recommendations, because I haven't. This is one that's on my list to like have a look at, because this for me, when you're talking when you're building like applications, what you can do is, like, if you're onboarding a new user, you might have a specific set of steps that they have to go through, right? So you say, like, the first thing you do is go and set up your profile, and the next thing you do is go and add this widget, and the next thing you do is go and add this widget. But that is very prescribed, and sometimes, especially different levels of like usability, that user experience can be broken quite quickly. So what you'd really want to do is to have a system that understood all of the user journeys and flows through your systems, and then work out what people have completed, and then recommend the next action based on what they've completed in the context of your organization, if that makes sense. And I think this is what this is doing. It's basically saying, how is the user interacting with your system? What's our best, guest judgment in terms of what we should recommend to that user next? So it may be an advert that you're displaying to the user on a website, depending on what they've interacted with on your website. If a user is looking at the lawnmowers on your e-commerce garden shop online, and then they jump over to strimmers, then maybe you should send them to show them a deal of a lawnmower strimmer combo package that's going to save them X amount of pounds, right? So I think this is where these types of recommendations are actually being fed in. But again, something for me to look at because I haven't looked in a huge amount of depth.
Yeah, they definitely sound interesting. Don't I think it would probably go. It's too heavy for me. I think Q&A Maker was probably the easiest thing for me in this area. um,
Brilliant.
anyway, okay, moving on to the next section. So we talked about OpenAI. Um, again, we talked about it earlier. There's a lot of it being integrated. Um, you kind of said that some of these services are included. Um, yeah, is there any more information around that?
Yeah, so what we're seeing with OpenAI is effectively a large number of the OpenAI models being effectively wrapped around because for OpenAI they've got their own APIs anyway, so you can connect into things like ChatGPT and access them via REST. But I think what we're seeing here is we're seeing a Microsoft-based wrapper around that for cognitive services um, for Azure-based organizations to actually utilize those models as well. So we're seeing things like GPT-3, Chat GPT, even the latest version of that, which is I believe GPT-3.5 Turbo. I think is the latest version of that. And then there's loads of other ones like DALI E you can use, which DALI E is like an image generator, which is unbelievable. If you've never used it, you should definitely go and try it out. There's a free tier on OpenAI as well. You just describe what you want it to generate, and it'll generate it for you, which is just yeah, yeah, crazy basically. So if you do want access to the models that OpenAI have, um, and you wish to do that in a like a Microsoft focused way, then the Azure OpenAI service is definitely a way for you to do that. And what we're seeing is the Azure OpenAI service. Personally, for me, is how a lot of these other integrations are actually happening. So, for instance, we've seen GPT-3 being embedded onto Power Platform for inside of Power Platform to be able to generate code from language. So that's actually called out as one of the use cases on the Azure OpenAI service that it was actually used for Power Platform. Um, we're also seeing as well GitHub's Copilot. You may have seen that. It's like a programming. Um, it's a programming like assistant. You pay I think it's like $10 a month or it's $15 a month. Um, th- uh, can't remember, but it's trained on a uh, public repositories of data, which is it's a little bit controversial around that, but we won't go into that. But it can effectively help you to program. It can auto complete in a lot, so you can. It's it's very scary. You can effectively, if you're like creating a function or something like that, you describe the name of the function, press tab, and it can write the whole thing for you, and it is actually really, really, really powerful. So we're seeing an integration there as well. So yeah, so definitely check out if you've seen good publicity of OpenAI models and you might want to include them in your own applications, definitely check out the Azure Open API service because they are large pre-trained AI models which do unlock new scenarios for you. Um, you can also create custom AI models which are fine-tuned with your data and hyperparameters. Um, and also there's sort of enterprise grade security and RBAC, and also the ability to utilize these systems inside of private networks as well. So when you are actually consuming these, you're potentially using sensitive models and putting sensitive data into them. So you might want that in a completely isolated environment, inside of maybe a your own disconnected VNet. So that is also possible with the Azure Open API service.
Wow, I mean that's the massive area, and Chat GPT 4 came out 3 days ago as well.
Oh, is it 4 is the latest one, is it?
Yeah,
Okay,
just
yeah,
come out three
yeah.
days ago, and I just had a quick look, and the Bing chat and the Bing, search engine side of stuff is already integrated with it, so it's like straight out the
Yeah,
door.
so my assumption is they're using that straight away for those services, and then we'll see it being, you know, once it's tested, it'll come to here.
Cool. Right, last question then, and we all love this one. How much does it all cost? How do we pay
Well,
for
I'm
it?
definitely not going through the pricing of all these different things, but the key takeaway is it is all, or the vast majority of it is consumption based. So it's like X amount of thousands of something costs X amount of money. So that's obviously very good for when you're starting up. Um, if you want to validate, a good way to look at this, I would say, is if you want to validate a business idea, this is a very good way to get AI into your applications without having to pay the upfront cost of making these models. Then, at the point at which you are consuming Azure Cognitive Services too much, and you can afford a 3 to 5 person AI team to be part of your organization, which is probably a lot of usage, and you may never even get to that point. Um, so the fact that it's pay as you go consumption is very powerful in my opinion. So you'll have to look up specific nuances for each scenario. I tried to also find out what the difference in pricing was for running your workload Microsoft side or in a container. What I could see it was the same price. That was what I basically saw, and I don't personally think that that is correct, but I couldn't find anything else to the contrary. If you look on the pricing table, it just basically has one price listed. So
I yeah, I
take that with
guess
a
if
pinch of salt.
yeah, I guess if it's sitting on Azure Stack or something like that, then you're paying for that service, aren't you? Maybe. I don't know. You said some of those scenarios is you can run it on your own hardware, but if some of
Yeah,
them are set to
yeah,
Azure Stack, then you're paying for that part, aren't you? So then it's sitting on that hardware. You're already kind of paying for it. Maybe
potentially. Yeah, yeah,
might make it more sense. But yeah, that's
yeah,
really good that you don't have to spend hundreds of pounds, thousands of pounds to even get into into the area. You can just test it out
yeah.
and see, because actually you're right. If you might have some small scenarios, like we might have some that might help us with some of our stuff that we're building, um, that could help us and just save us some time. Also,
Exactly.
I
Yeah,
can't think of anything
yeah,
right now, but well, I do. I do see some stuff with who we, for what we do, um, but yeah. So great. Well, is there anything else, Sam, you can think about? I mean,
no,
we've heard a lot. We're quite a long episode for the
yeah.
people listening.
Yeah.
So
No, definitely a taster for everybody listening. I hope that was helpful to you. And I'm going to spend a lot of time going through each of those to understand, you know, what benefits it could give us. For me, the one that is really stand out to me is the entity recognition in text. So, like understanding the contents of documents, what's in them, um, potentially for things like and there are compliance tooling that can do this anyway, but I would really like to see how it can pull out PII information from like OCR as well to maybe fill some gaps in different places. So yeah, so that's a really powerful thing that I can see.
great. Well, thanks, Sam, for a really quick, I say quick whistle top store, but definitely a lot of detail in there about some of the things we can use it for. So thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks. So Alan, what we up for next time?
So we're going to talk about Intune, and I'm going to say Intune this time because it's not Endpoint Manager anymore because it's got rebranded back to Intune, um, because they've got a new suite, a new Plan 2 license. It's not just Intune on its own anymore. We've now got a second tier to it. It meets the family of all the rest of the Microsoft products where there's a second tier. So, so yeah, we're going to run through what's new, what's coming, what's out, because some of it's not quite there yet, but some of it is very interesting around managing your devices. Um, uh, I heard quite a lot about this at Ignite in in 2022 when they announced it, and now we're starting to see some of it, and I think a lot of it's interesting from a management and support perspective of your devices.
Okay, great. Yeah, can't wait for that. And yeah, it's good to see that they're sort of bulking that Intune rebrand out with even more capability, right? So yeah, very interesting to see what we can do now. So if you've enjoyed this episode, please do consider subscribing if you'd like to listen to more of this sort of content in the future. We have many more topics that we like to cover, and your listens and support is what will continue to fuel the podcast going forward.
We also have the ability for you to give us some feedback. Did you enjoy this episode? Disagree with our thoughts, or did we miss something? Um, we've got a contact page that's linked in the show notes. Yeah, give us some feedback or leave us a voice message.
Yes, definitely. I think what I'll also do is I'll add the voicemail to the notes as well, for sure.
Yeah.
Make it
Okay.
easy. Cool. Uh, Thanks, Alan. Um, yeah, hopefully that was valuable to people listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Yes. Thank you, Sam, for this episode. And yeah, thanks for everyone for listening and speak to you soon. Bye.